Dash for energy is worrying, green energy is worrying people. Will you ensure that you don't do it at the expense of family budgets, which, I mean, the Tories have weakened their plans, their targets to do that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's very important that we make the transition to green energy because it's cheaper, it's more secure, but we mustn't do it in a way which impacts on people disproportionately. We're going to set up GB a publicly owned energy company, and that will actually drive down energy bills, not just for a short time, but for good, because I know that particularly in the last 2 years, so many people have been absolutely clobbered with the high energy bills, which they can't afford, and businesses as well, like this pub.
Quite right. On the small boats crisis, Sheila Traynor wants to ask you about this. Do you want to stop the boats? Your manifesto says stop the chaos, not stop the boats. Will you guarantee to GBNews viewers you will cut the number of crossings by migrants across the Channel in year one of your premiership?
Well, look, we want to get those numbers down. Nobody should be making that journey. And the way to do that is to tackle the gangs that are running this vile trade. There are gangs making an absolute fortune, putting vulnerable people in boats, running this trade, in breach of our borders, record numbers this year. Nobody should make that crossing. So we want to set a border security command, a new command, an elite command, bringing together all of our police and law enforcement, which will have new powers, counter-terrorism powers, to smash these gangs. And I've done it before when I was chief prosecutor with terrorist gangs.
You work closely
we
with
can
them.
do it again. We've got to stop this business of people crossing the Channel in small boats.
I don't want to talk about betting too much, but will you bet me a pint of beer that in year one you'll bring down the undercrossings?
Chris, betting in politics
It's not allowed
is a
anymore.
very, very bad idea. I think Rishi Sunak's in all sorts of trouble with bets on his
Just on
side
that,
of
do
the
you think it's time the Gambling Commission asked him for who he told about the July 4th date? Is it time they went to him?
I think he should come clean and say who knew. He should take immediate action against those that are being investigated, suspend his candidate. If they're my candidate, I'd have had them out the door without their feet touching the ground, and show some leadership on this. I have to say there's a deeper point here, Chris, which is about where politics has gone under this government, because the first instinct of some of those Tories in relation to a general election is not what's good for the country, but how quickly can I get to the bookies and make myself some money. I mean, it tells you everything that's wrong with 14 years of chaos and decline.
I'm going to move on quickly because we've got limited time. You've got to get home, see your family tonight on a Friday night. I know it's very important to you. You're committed to the NHS. I know that. Of course, your mum was treated there. Your wife works there. But you wouldn't pay for private healthcare even if one of your children was ill. Well, I find that amazing as a dad.
Two things, Chris. Firstly, I think the question I was asked was, would I pay for private healthcare to effectively jump the waiting list?
Yes.
I wouldn't. I actually had an operation on my knee some years ago. I waited my turn. But the idea of the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, who is responsible for bringing waiting lists down, then saying to the public, but so far as I'm concerned, I'm going to jump the list.
But you can afford to. Most people on a good wage do afford it and pay for it.
If I am, elected in to serve as Prime Minister, my job is to bring those waiting lists down, and I'm not going to at the same time say, but for me, I'm going to jump the queue.
Your poor children, if you can afford, you can take the pressure off the waiting list by paying it for it yourself. That's what Margaret Thatcher was said.
No, look, I'm not going to jump the queue when others are waiting that queue. I'm going to reduce the queue. The other thing I should say is this, because there are different ways this question is put. On acute care, people say, well, what if your child was really ill? On acute care, the NHS is absolutely the best. So much so that private hospitals refer into the NHS. So if we had an acute case, I'd want to be treated by the NHS because that's the best place to be.
A chronic issue I'm talking about.
No, I wouldn't. I'm not going to say to the country, I'm going to drive down your waiting list, but I'm going to pay to sort of accelerate myself.
Do you want your cabinet to have the same principles?
Sorry?
Do you want your cabinet to have the same
I'm not ideological about it. I mean, the real political issue here is why so many people feel they've got to go private because they're waiting so long. And we're talking about working people before. These working people are now having to pay for hip replacements, knee replacements, because they can't get them quickly enough on the NHS. That's the disgrace of the waiting list damage that this government has done.
Just quickly on the issue of trust, you say you'd rather Jeremy Corbyn to Boris Johnson. You said why last night on the BBC. I mean, but Jeremy Corbyn wouldn't say he would defend us with nuclear weapons. Why would he be better than Boris Johnson?
Well, at the last election, we had a very poor choice in 2019, and what transpired was obviously Jeremy Corbyn got rejected by the electorate, not the right person, and we've expelled him now from the Labour Party. So that's how far we've changed the Labour Party. Boris Johnson was elected as Prime Minister and a number of years later was booted out of Parliament for breaking the rules. That's why I've been so determined to change the Labour Party to always say country first, party second, and make sure at this election, there is a real choice between continuing with the Tories or now turning a page and rebuilding the country with Labour.
And keeping us safe, you would do that, wouldn't you, if required?
Absolutely. It's the first duty of any Prime Minister, and in the Labour Party we understand that. That's why if you look at the original treaty for NATO, which is deposited in Brussels at the NATO headquarters,
you've been there several times.
It's got Bevan's signature on it, a Labour Secretary of State, a founding member of NATO.
On your patriotism, which is a big issue since we first spoke when you became leader, are you more patriotic than Nigel Farage?
Oh, look, I wouldn't start this business of comparing myself with others.
You have a quieter sense, don't you?
I'm truly patriotic in that my mission, if you like, the very reason I came into politics is to improve our country and improve the lives of millions of people in our country. I'm very proud of our country. I'm very proud to sit in front of the Union Jack. I did it when I represented our country as Chief Prosecutor. But the passion in me, yes, it is perhaps a quiet passion, is to improve this country, to genuinely take it forward. I think most people in this country are reasonable, tolerant, live and let live. They want to get on themselves, they want their family to get on, they want their community to get on, and they want their country to get on. And that's what drives me. Improving our country is my number one goal. Just
your last question to you. Your team want to take you away correctly to see your family. You've been in Scotland all day, I understand that.
They've been looking after me well.
I know. You've been watching the football. Do voters want you as PM? Do they want a Pep Guardiola? Do you worry you might be a bit Gareth Southgate, defensive, indecisive, boring even, Keir Starmer?
No, let's not do that. We've only had 2 games, and England traditionally
they can turn it round.
We don't often win the first game. We're sort of looking like we need to win the 3rd game, so we're in traditional territory. But what you need is a good team, a good strategy, and an absolute steely determination to win. And you need that in politics as well, and I've got it.
OK. So, Keir Starmer, thank you for joining us tonight for GB News. Great to see you. Thank you.
Thank you.